So, welcome to our talk, Women in Tech, behind the scenes in Commerzbank. We're going to give you a tour on how we do innovation with AI, but also do it in a trustworthy manner. So I'm here, Julia Sterling from Big Data Advanced Analytics. So I do AI governance and AI strategy for the first line for, let's say, the model builders in Commerzbank. And I have with me Ratul.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us. It's great to be here. The reason it is in English is actually for me. At the moment, I've been in Commerzbank now in Frankfurt for about 6 months now. So my, how do I say it, Julia? It's Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. So
That's
I'm
perfect.
getting there slowly. I head up the model risk, the model risk management and validation teams for Commerzbank. I'm a divisional board member there. So tech is making its way into the world of everywhere in banking and especially in validation. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that a bit later. So Julia, shall we get started?
Yeah, so maybe we just show you on where is AI helping Commerzbank and our customers. So AI is already an important part of Commerzbank. That's our main message here. And we have 4 different areas where we can use AI to make an impact for Commerzbank. So the first and obvious thing is marketing and revenue growth. It's basically with things that you know from Amazon, like the next best offers, like things you know from maybe using our retail accounts. We also do sales analytics for our corporate customers. And second thing is risk quantification. So there's 2 sides to that story. So we have a lawmaker in the European Union who is giving a broad definition of AI. So even like old traditional models like statistical models and logistic regressions are going to be labeled as AI. This is what we are mainly doing when it comes to these things like credit scoring. So it's going to be relabeled, but also if you look into modeling risk, then you also look into complex realities. And so this is also where AI, like the true and narrow definition of AI, could help. And loss and fraud prevention, you might not gonna see too much of that in the public if you think of Commerzbank and only know Commerzbank branches, because there we try to find fraudsters. We do anti-money laundering. We are also looking into real actual credit fraud. And yeah, this is where we are not that transparent, because the more transparent we are, the better it is for all the fraudsters to circumvent us. And cost reduction efficiency, I think this is true for any company. In banking, you could think of something like document extraction. We are a heavily paper-based industry with a lot of contracts, a lot of things you need to give to us if you apply for a loan, for example, and we can read those out automatically, which is something that has been done by humans beforehand. And maybe, Ratul, one question is, what is the risks of AI and why are we also looking to trustworthiness?
Risks of AI is we could be here all day. Luckily, we've only got a little bit of time. So the main things, I think, if I go through the list and give you a few examples, like a lot of people talking about, I'll come to this picture in one sec, but a lot of people talk about job displacement. What does that mean when we start to use AI? I think everybody here has probably heard the story of Klarna recently, and they're introducing their chatbot has actually, well, their assistant chatbots has actually enabled them to do the work of 700 people that they had employed in their customer services area. So people are concerned about job displacement. One of the other things and places where people are concerned is bias and discrimination. And we have this up on the board, which shows us that, really what it means is that I think AI systems can actually amplify existing biases that we have in the environment that we're in. And this is one example that we've got here is like, can you show me a bunch of doctors that we have in the US? How many doctors do we have? And you can see that, how many women are there, Julia? Not many, right?
I think it's 7%.
7% women in this picture alone. And actually the number I think we have for female doctors in the US, I need to look up the number. Was it about 13% or?
It's 39.
39%, right? So it goes to show that the AI systems, or what we're actually training, how we train the AI tools themselves, are actually based on, it depends upon our own biases that we might have. So we have to train it. How do we train that going forward is a concern. generally speaking. I think there are other things as well where you have concerns. There's privacy concerns as well. There are security concerns. And there's also a lack of transparency, right? At the end of the day, everybody's going to turn around and say, it's a black box. Like, what's behind it? How do we move forward for that? And I think the most important thing there is education. And that's why we're here. That's why we're educating within the bank. Commerzbank is a very inclusive environment to help us come and speak to each other about how we're using tech, how we use AI as well. So these are really important ways for us to move forward. And I think, it's a really interesting set of risks that we have, but I think we're at a point now where we really have to address them and talk about them and understand and appreciate that these risks are out there and how we mitigate these risks going forward. So I think, Julian, maybe you could give us some idea how these risks are addressed.
Yeah, so we should jump then to our EU AI Act. So because all these risks like fairness, like transparency, like maybe I still show it. Yeah. It's bias and fairness is one of the risks. Ratul already mentioned. It's regulatory compliance because lawmakers are not make really final decisions on how to regulate that. And I talk more on the AI Act. Cybersecurity threats, there are a lot of new options to attack us or the models. It's about explainability and transparency. Already said, transparency is not always good, but it's also about how to communicate and what to communicate in the right manner to the people. So data scientists talking to someone for model validation is a whole different story than when I explain something to a customer on whether your loan did get the approval or didn't. So it's a whole set of different information we need to share. And it's also about reputational risk, what happens if something goes wrong. And data privacy and security is something we have always been doing, but now it also translates to AI. And this is what these lawmakers in the European Union have been looking into, I would say, quite for a while. And as you see, they're drinking champagne over there in Brussels. So they just made the final decision on how to regulate AI. They say it's not a banking regulation. It's a broad regulation in the whole European Union. It's for all industries. And they say we're not interested in what the model exactly is, so whether it's a transformer architecture or neural networks or, let's say, more traditional models. We take care about the fundamental rights of people, about their well-being, that you can live in a world where AI is not doing harm to you. And so they also think the whole story from the applications perspective, and they say there's something we don't want to see. It's unacceptable risk, like social credit scoring, we know from China. Then there are high risks, which is obviously allowed, but has high requirements because there is a high risk to the fundamental rights of people. And limited risk is something we could think of when talking about deepfakes, chatbots on talkbots, that you are not interacting with a proper person, and this needs to be labeled and made transparent somehow. And of course, the text is final now, but there is still a lot of movement. They say, for example, your model needs to be fair. They don't say what fairness is, like how many doctors we need to show in our pictures, for example. They will have a lot of regulation coming beneath that. We will also have the situation where the UK is going to have different set of rules and the US too, then compared to the European Union, maybe not even the same definition of AI, and the same translates into all other countries in the world. So there is going to be still a roadmap for us. And Commerzbank started early in adopting an AI governance, and the four pillars on top is like the soft skill pillars. It's having a proper AI strategy, know where you want to get and how you want to get there. That's the first thing you need to do when thinking about how to make innovation, plus how to trustworthy innovate. The second thing is KI principles, the AI principles, normally called KI Grundsätze in our house. We sat together with our works council and discussed what does AI mean, how can we use AI for the good, also for the employees, and where we don't do harm to our employees at the same time. I'm standing here for the BDAA team. We also have great in trainee programs out there in our job vaults. We are the Center of Competence for AI in Commerzbank, and we also provide some sort of services to the bank in the AI space and also act as an advisor to other departments. And we do a lot of on AI literacy. We have a newsletter that is called Explained, provided by you for our mascot, Kim. And we do a lot of talks and do a lot of upskilling of the people. That's also something that's really important to us. And on the last 4 things, Ratul and me, we work closely together.
Exactly. So you might wonder why the divisional board member for validation is actually standing here on the stage today. That's actually my full title. And the reason being is that, we talked about models, and within banks, we have to validate those models independently. And I think Julia mentioned the right point on AI literacy is super important. So the reason myself and Julia work very closely together is because we need to broaden that AI literacy across the bank. We need to, at the end of the day, as the model validation function, we need to validate those models. We need to adhere to what the regulator wants us to put in place as well, but also what we want to do for our customers. We need to make sure that we have the 3 lines of defense for artificial intelligence and machine learning. These things are really important to have them in place so that as customers of the bank, people are aware that we have the right governance and framework in place for the use of AI. We have a machine learning guideline as well. We are building an AI inventory, and we have people here from within the organization, if you want to speak to, that are involved in that AI inventory, some in the crowd. That can tell you a little bit about how we're building that. And you might wonder why it's key to have an AI inventory. It's super important right now for us as banks and other corporates in general is to start building an inventory of what we're actually using, because all areas across an organization and indeed a bank want to start using or make the benefits of using large language models in the work that they do on a day-to-day basis. So it's super important for us to build an AI inventory. And it's super important for us to make sure that we have, as a bank, an overall understanding of what is in that inventory, so we understand that who's using what going forward. And that's why we work very closely together as well. And of course, law and regulation and monitoring in general is super important. Julia here is a great expert, and she's been doing a lot of lobbying in the EUI Act and is very knowledgeable on that. And so it's really important for us across the bank to spread that literacy, to have that information, and to make sure we're implementing control checks or key risk indicators, whatever you want to call them, that are in line with the law and the regulation that we have across the organization.
Yeah, and maybe, Ratul, the people here, because we are on the Women in Tech stage, ask themselves, how did you end up here? Why are you a woman in tech, and why do we all need to be women in tech in the future?
I think that it's a really interesting time in my career. I mean, I've come into model validation or model risk management here in Commerzbank, and I think we're at a bit of a cusp. I mean, I think about all those inflection points we've had in technology in the last, 25, 30 years. We had, what we have in 2007 was the launch of the iPhone. I think that was a big thing for us. And then we had the advent, I think maybe early before that, we had the advent of e-commerce and a few other things like that. But I think that AI is a massive inflection point for everybody out there. And it's not just for people in organizations. It's a real impact to individuals as well. And you can really use it. It's tacit. It's like one of these things that you can really play with, right? You can go and play with OpenAI as an individual, but as an organization, you can use it as well. So why am I here today? Is because I need to make myself literate on tech. I need to be involved in other parts of the organization to make sure that we work together in introducing artificial intelligence. And why am I here? Well, I'm female, that's true. And I think that technology is going to be the thing for us going forward. I say the same for you, Julia. Why are you here today?
So I have to say that I did my A-levels in Darmstadt. So I love going to Darmstadt, that's for sure. And when I did so, I always think no, I never really saw myself in 10 years' time being a woman in tech on the Darmstadium stage. But anyhow, I made it here. So I was always into Mars. I loved stochastics. I did like the proper banker's career in the start. I studied financial maths in the end. I also worked in the investment banking sector with all the option pricings where the interesting models were built for myself, at least by that time. And with the financial crisis and let's say the downburst of exotic derivatives, I started looking for a new job, which by that time we started building up BDAA, Big Data Advanced Analytics, and this is basically how I ended up here. And it's also a great thing for me in Commerzbank. We are a really big organization, so we are quite open to develop oneself further. You can change divisions because otherwise, also only ever the investment banking sector would have been open to me from my degree wise. And Commerzbank is also good when it comes to work-life balance, employee. We really look into our employees, making them happy. We do have good home office rules, I think. It's quite flexible. We also offer vacation. Did you ever do that? I didn't, to be honest, but for me, it's more or less like down on the childcare.
It's good. We both have small children. I think, I didn't give you all my background into how I got here, and maybe I should give a little bit of that as well, just to add. I've been with Commerzbank in Frankfurt now for 6 months, as I said earlier, but before that, I was with Nordea in Copenhagen. But prior to that, I was with Commerzbank in London for 20 years. And I took on a lot of roles there. I was a market risk manager and looking at some of the trades that Julia did on the equity derivatives time, or not the equity derivatives time, the rates derivatives area, I believe. Yeah,
swap and bond derivatives.
In Julia's time of trading. I think Commerzbank, I did a lot of roles within Commerzbank, and it's great to come back. I was looking at market risk for pretty much the majority of my life, which is a really good space to see end-to-end what happens within the markets, within trading, understanding the impact to the P&L for the bank. It's a really good place of grounding to understand overall what you can do across the organization, to then move across to a different organization, again in market risk, and now back to Commerzbank in model risk. And I think model risk is really, I'm going to say it and I'm going to be very honest, is really the future for banks as well. I mean, look at, if I say that AI is a future for banks, then AI, well, really large language models is a model at the end of the day. So that's how I'm here and why I'm here, continue to want to be here, and why I'm a woman in tech. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Julia.
Yeah, maybe just when you mentioned that validation aspect you've been doing in the past, I think it's also quite related because in our previous jobs, we worked a lot with probabilities and stochastics. And it's, again, AI is a lot about probabilities. And so it is close to what we did in the past. So if you don't, for example, if you're not the trained AI expert, sometimes it's closer than you might think.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. I mean, I'm a physicist, if you want to call me that originally. That's what I did as a degree. And then through that, what I've been doing through life is quite quantitative, I guess you could say, as a risk manager as well as, I guess, as a trader. But a lot of the things that we learn are, how you learn and how you incorporate that into your organization, I think is also super important as well. And I think one of the things we're trying to say is that Commerzbank embraced the AI journey quite early through BDAA in 2017. And what we do as a bank is we really leverage off what the other areas are trying to build on. So we want to really work as an organization to be able to bring the use cases for LLMs within the bank. We're very good at nurturing that. And if we go back to, I think, the slides that we had up here, right? These principles and these pillars are super important for how we operate as a bank. And I think it's great for people that, I don't really, I'm a physicist by background, as I said, but I'm not a true quant. You couldn't put me in front of a validation for, I don't know, credit risk models, and I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But I can understand how to reach out to people. I can understand how me and Julia can work on putting the AI inventory together with Tom as well, who's here today, and how we can work together to bring things together is also another facet of being in technology. Also being a woman, I would say this quite honestly, I think women do it quite well. There aren't enough of us in the industry. We need to leverage a little bit more on that. And I think that's super important to have that within our organization. I'm glad that we have that.
Yeah, maybe we can take questions if you like.
Thanks for lending me a mic. Perfect. Thank you. First of all, thank you. I think we can give both of them a round of applause for sharing your expertise with us and for sharing already some great insights into how you got here and your diverse career path. So if you would like to pose a question, we do have time for some questions from you as well. So just please raise your hand so I know who to get to. All right.
Next to you now.
Okay, so thanks for this talk and informative information that you provided. But I have to ask about you mentioned risk qualification. Is it like internal risk and compliance, like what the auditors are doing, or it's more related to the customer or the side? I don't know if I make myself.
I didn't quite get the question.
Okay, so risk qualification. So is it like an audit?
Yeah, so maybe I should shed more light. If you're from the banking industry, that term is quite obvious because we do have a lot of financial risks, so people who are not going to repay their debt and these kind of things. And we also need to do forecasts and manage our portfolio because everyone is going to be bankrupt at the same time. Is also bad for Commerzbank, right? And so this is why we price risk. We need to measure those. It's all about measuring risks. This has been something that has been done in banks, I don't know, forever. Yeah, at the dawn of time, as you said. And so risk quantifying the financial risks we are having, but also quantifying the non-financial risks we are having. This is also a big issue for banks. But in that slide you mentioned, I meant these risk quantification models that are used, for example, for credit scoring and these kind of things.
Okay, so do you have any applications for the process improvement internal, like improving the internal processes, like identifying what are the bottlenecks, or it's just like for the marketing and loss and prevention and other applications that you mentioned? It's like process mining.
Ah, okay, so data mining. Do we have processes for that where we can... Where
like
we understand
internal processes.
Yes, of course.
Of the
we do have that, and I'm trying to find an analogy. I don't know if you can think of anything off the top of your head.
Yeah, maybe when for the income statements. So we get a lot of income statements for all the people who apply for the loan, and there we use optical character recognition to read out the actual documents, which in past days have been went through by humans actually.
And there's a few more as well. So we have when we're looking at documentation scrubbing, for example, I know that legal will can use some generative AI tools as well that you can use to help you with some scrubbing of data. We've created a internal resource-based tool. So all of the documentation we have internally, we can scrub to get out key information for us, as any employee can as well. We developed that internally. I think that was via Vincent Baldo, right? In audit, there's many different use cases. Sorry.
An internal knowledge base.
Internal knowledge base, as in you mean a depository of knowledge? Yes. And this is something that we're looking to do, right? We're not quite there yet, but we're looking to do it.
Not quite there yet, but looking to do is kind of the whole thing, right?
Exactly.
We're all not quite there yet, but looking to do. And I am trying to keep my stage on time.
Yes.
So unfortunately, I'll have to lead all of you to meet the guys afterwards and meet your colleagues afterwards at the booth. So I could pose one last question, which is, at the Women in Tech stage, as two inspiring leaders, two inspiring personalities who shaped your very own way as a banker and a physicist, shaping the future of AI in banking, what advice would you give to young people who want to get into field, especially to young women?
Shall I take it? Okay, so I think the one thing I would give is, if I could talk to my younger self, would be to say, be generous, right? Just be generous with other people. So give as much as you can. And you can call it networking, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But I think if you give, you will find in later years and later times that it will come back to help you. So, You know, a prime example is me and Julia being here on stage, right? Julia's been feeding me and giving me lots of information, but we're leveraging it off each other, right? And this network is there to help support my validation team to grow as well. So give as much as you can.
I completely say that's true. And I also would add, do something you're passionate about, because life is too short to do something you don't like. And this is also how I ended up here.